The politics of Rivers State is quite intriguing and requires a lot of guts and calculations, just as we've seen and witnessed in the last few days. And today's development appears to have hit a crescendo in a series of more to come. Just take a look at this. As you can see, things are happening in quick succession. Just this morning, news filtered in that a convoy conveying and consisting of about 10 bulldozers moved into the assembly complex. And just before long, that facility on Moscow Road in Port Harcourt, the state capital, came crashing down amidst high security. The Rivers State government says it is carrying out what they call the renovation of the assembly complex on the advice of consultant who had warned that the building is no longer habitable after recent fire engulfed the hallowed chambers and the need to strengthen the long existing complex. Let's take a listen to the commissioner.
His Excellency also commissioned consultants who went into the structure and came up with an advice that it was no longer habitable and not very conducive for business. On the strength of that advice, the government had decided to demolish that structure and also provide a befitting place for members of parliament to transact their business. Well, the rapidity at which we commenced today will tell you that we're prepared to do it. And within record time, I'm sure that place will be fit for legislative business.
Now, in their reaction, the chairman of the APC Caretaker Committee, Mr. Tony Okocha, is actually accusing the government of being responsible for the inferno that engulfed that hallowed chamber about 2 months ago, while the Commissioner of Police, Tunji Disu, has assured the residents that the police is doing all they can to make sure that, given what is going on in the state, there is no breakdown of law and order. Well, I wish we could get you a soundbite, but let's stay with this Rivers story. Now, as that was going on, I mean the demolition of the assembly complex, Governor Similayo Fubara was presenting the 2024 budget proposal of 800 billion naira to the State Assembly, led by Edison Ehie. They are 4 in number. The presentation was done at the Government House in Port Harcourt following the demolition of the assembly complex by the state government. And they say it's in line with the State High Court order, which recognized Mr. Ehie as the authentic Speaker of the House. Mr. Fubara, or Governor Fubara rather, said the budget of renewed hope, consolidation, and continuity, as he tagged it, is aimed at promoting economic growth.
The overall policy objective of the 2024 budget are to promote economic development in the state through inclusive growth, the provision of critical infrastructure to support economic and business and social activities, and the creation of an enabling environment for private sector-led industrialization, job creation, and poverty reduction. We will strive to address the challenges of social economic inequality by ensuring improved access to quality and affordable education, healthcare, water, electricity, housing, social investment, gender empowerment, and social inclusion.
Now, Rivers State has been in the news for a few days, and it's still in the news today, given what happened earlier this morning. Now, if you follow the history of Rivers State and their governors, without counting the people like late Melford Okilo, who ruled in 79 all the way to 83, and Ada George in 1992 to 1993. From 1999 till date, successive governors have had problem with the people who handed over to them. So when Governor Peter Odili took over, there was a challenge between Governor Peter Odili and his successor, Rotimi Amechi. When Governor Rotimi Amechi left office, he had Governor Nyesom Wike had an altercation or some kind of disagreement with his friend, and his brother, literally, because they are from the same ethnic nationality. And Governor Wike played an instrumental role in bringing Governor Siminalayi Fubara. And barely 7 months into that relationship, these fireworks are exuding all over the place. So I'm being joined on the program today by a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Femi Falana, who is joining us in Lagos here via Zoom. Mr. Femi Falana, thank you so much for joining us. So you can see those are the pictures.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Well, Mr. Falana, I was just trying to walk through the history of Rivers State and particularly bringing to the notice of the audience that what is going on is not new. What the difference is this is pretty quite early, given the fact that it was instrumental. So let's walk through this. Just yesterday, there was a court order validating Edison Ehie as the speaker, made up of 4 members, as against the 27 who have now defected to the APC. And in less than 24 hours, Leonard Silk, the assembly complex has been demolished according to the government. They want to renovate because integrity issues and all of that. As that is going on, Governor Siminalayi Fubara has presented a budget to the state assembly made up of 4 people. What do you make of what is going on in Rivers State?
Well, for me, it is an interesting development, but very disturbing. A situation whereby forces outside the state will insist on what a governor should do. It is very clear now that some of the dramatis personae have not taken, are not exposed to sound legal. On the law pronouncement on this crisis, unless you go to a higher court, the judgments.
Leonard, can you hear me?
There was a judgment yesterday to the. There was a judgment yesterday to the fact that the 4 legislators, for now, constitute the House of Assembly of Rivers State. Since 27 have decamped from PDP to APC. They have lost their seats, as it were, because there is no crisis in the PDP, none to law. And if you go by the Supreme Court decision, in the case of Honorable Abegunde against the Labour Party, in Ondo State, it was made clear in that judgment that a self-inflicted crisis cannot be allowed under the law. So the party must have broken down the line before you can talk of a division in a party that will warrant your remaining in a House of Assembly or in a legislative house. But once there is no division in your party and you decide to quit, every law student knows in Nigeria that automatically you lose your seat. You have to go and recontest under your new party. So I think this is very, very clear. Now, once there is a judgment of a court that says for now, only the 4 legislators are recognized, and the speaker has now declared vacant the seats of the 27 legislators who have become, they have to go to court to challenge the decision of the speaker, while the INEC is required, following the declaration by the speaker, to conduct fresh elections in those seats where the legislators have moved to another party. With respect to the demolition of the House of Assembly, again, in Rivers State, particularly under the immediate past administration, houses of opponents were demolished, properties, the CFO, certificates of occupants obtained by opponents were revoked. So Rivers State is used to what is going on. But in this particular instance, where the House of Assembly was bombed last month when there was an attempt to conduct a national impeachment of the governor. If the state government now says, we are renovating the property, we are demolishing to renovate, while an alternative venue will be provided for now for the house to continue to conduct its business. We can guess what is
let us say
on to achieve a political objective. For now, that is neither here nor there. Once there is a venue for them.
If I may, Leonard Sek, if you can you hear me clearly, sir?
It concluded and the house, the complex is renovated. For now, I think that is the way I want to live it. I don't want to engage in congestion or speculation.
Okay, Leonard Sek, if you had, I don't know whether you were privy to listening to some of the things the 27 members had said. We even had to speak to some of them right here on Channels Television, and they alluded to the fact that especially
but I think one of them has returned to the PDP, today.
We'll need to find that out. But what I'm trying to say, Leonard Sek, is the fact that they said, the speaker especially, the Amewule-led group, I should say, rather, said, look, that there's a disagreement as to who is the national secretary of the People's Democratic Party. That was what he said, that there's a disagreement. And they also alluded to the fact that they've been intimidated, accused the governor of high-handedness and something, I can't remember all of the details, but basically there is disunity within their party, which is a premise for them to leave the party. And what I've always posed to Leonard Silk like you is, because there's a proviso in 109 section 1G, second paragraph, that says that if there's an established division within the party, that's a good reason for them to excuse themselves from the party.
The Constitution, that provision was interpreted by the Supreme Court in the case of Abegunde that I mentioned earlier. And the court made it clear, we're not talking of a division within a state. We're not talking of a division within a local government. We're talking of a party that is divided, from the leadership, down the line. Whereas, if you are talking of two factions of the PDP, two people claiming to be chairman of the PDP, two general secretaries, or two executives, then we can say there is a division. But if there is a disagreement between legislators and the governor in a state, which is a common phenomenon, that will not be regarded as a division known to the Constitution, known to law. And that is what I meant by saying that I think the legislators were not exposed to sound legal advice. Because everybody will have known, once the Supreme Court has made a pronouncement on a matter in any country, you are bound to comply. And if you are going to take a decision, you must study the judgment very critically. Just yesterday, 20 legislators who decamp from the PDP to the APC had their seat declared vacant by the court. That is the law. That is the law. Unless the Supreme Court decides to change its decision tomorrow or review its decision and revise the decision, that is the law in Nigeria today. And it's also a good development. It's a good law, a good interpretation of the law, that there should be no political prostitution in the country. Because it is tantamount to political immorality. If you are voted for on the basis of the program of a political party and you abandon the party, you are advised to go and try your luck by contesting again under the new political platform. But the division the court is talking about, the law is talking about, is not a division within, members of a party in a state. It must be at the national level, whereby you can say, I belong to faction A or I belong to faction B. But today, the PDP is one. And I remember, I think it was Governor, the current minister of the FCT,
Yes,
former governor, Wike, who went to court. There's an attempt to expel him from the party, and the court intervened. Thou shalt remain there. So he remains a member of the PDP. If those who are backing him in the state decide to try their luck elsewhere, you can only wish them success. So be it.
So, if I may comment, staying with the issue of the court, I wouldn't know. I want to find out from you, Leonard Silk, what is the premise that the court relied on to give verdicts in favor of Edison Ehie? Because we know that there was an order stopping both sides from sitting, and twice the 27 sat before they eventually defected to the APC. So what do you think the court relied on to make that decision? Is it because they flouted the order of court or their defection to recognize Edison Ehie as the speaker?
I haven't got a copy of the judgment. I think the judgment was delivered yesterday. But whatever may have influenced the decision of the court, that remains a valid and subsisting judgment today until it is reversed by the same court or a higher court. So we have to deal with that judgment today, because by virtue of Section 287 of the Constitution, the judgments of the High Court, the judgments of the Court of Appeal, the judgments of the Supreme Court shall be binding on all authorities and persons in the country. So as of today, that remains the judgment of the court.
Let's push it a bit further. The governor and the government rather had said that, look, we are demolishing this building because the Harlot Chamber was burned down. The integrity, we've not seen the results of the integrity test as claimed by government. Yes. And some other people are presuming that, look, this is just to make sure that the other party does not sit. I know you are a Leonard Silk, maybe not an engineer, but do you think it's the right move for the government to bring the entire asset down because of what happened in the Harlot Chamber?
You see, I don't want to engage in speculation as a lawyer. I don't want to engage in speculation. People can hazard a guess, that people can speculate. But might have helped to prevent some people from sitting, But that argument no longer holds water. One, the 27 people have left the PDP, and the speaker has now declared their positions vacant. They have to go to court. But the government has also said, we are not shutting down the business of the House of Assembly. We are providing an alternative venue, pending when the renovation will be carried or be completed. I cannot go beyond the explanation of the government for now.
Let's also
say that there was no basis for the renovation.
Let's also touch on that. Some people are raising eyebrows as the fact that there's supposed to be separation of powers between the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. And we understand that the sitting that happened today happened in Government House, where the governor presented his budget. Is there anything against the law that says that this recognized group of 4, led by Edison Ehie, cannot sit in a place like Government House?
You see, again, these issues, the crisis in Rivers State, in all its ramifications, has been decided by our courts one way or the other. The position of the court in the case of Adeleke and Inokonju, that is the case that has to do with the impeachment of Governor Ladoja, where some legislators sat in the House of Assembly and purported to have removed the governor. The Supreme Court again made the point that legislators cannot sit outside the precinct of the assembly complex. The explanation that has been offered today, whether you accept it or not, was that since the house was being demolished, since the house is going to be renovated, the House of Assembly complex, the governor has therefore decided to address the house. But whether he can do that in the state house is another matter entirely.
That's what I want to find out.
Because, as you have said, the Supreme Court has made a point that you can only conduct the business of the house in the complex, in the House of Assembly complex, because you had a situation in the past where in the dead of the night, like booklotters, legislators will gather in a hotel, surrounded by thugs, and pass a resolution that the governor of a state has been removed. Hence, the Supreme Court made the point in the case of Adeleke Anakonju that you can only conduct the business of the house in a legislative house, the complex. If you have a problem, you ask for security so that the business of the house can be properly conducted. And that is the only way to prevent some aggrieved members or those who disagree with the governor. That's the only way to prevent them from gathering somewhere and say we have impeached the governor. So, in the same manner, you have to justify why you have to conduct the business of the house outside the premises, outside the precinct of the House of Assembly complex. Yeah.
Let's dig further. Now there are 4 members of there are 32 of them in total. One person.
Yes.
There are 32 of them. Now 27 have defected to the APC. 4 were the ones that Saturday. One unfortunately passed on earlier in the year. Election is to be conducted pretty soon, depending on INEC. So, the key question I want to ask: what does the law say about 4 persons now being presented with an appropriation bill of 800 billion naira to make a decision over spending limits and estimations of a state, given what is going on? Does the law frown at it in any way, or even if it's one person that was left in the party, it's okay before the law, just for the benefit of our audience?
Again, if the members of the political class are operating under the rule of law, these matters have been taken care of by the court. Again, by the Supreme Court, in the case of Plateau, Biafalong, where Governor Dariye was purportedly impeached by 8 members, because I think about 18 of them, of legislators at the camp, and they lost their seats. And the INEC has so pronounced, and INEC was preparing election. And the Supreme Court said, no, 8 of you cannot impeach a governor because the governor was elected by the people. So if he's going to be impeached, the 2/3 majority of the members, not of 8 members, but of 24 members, I think, are only impeached the governor. With respect to what has just happened, there was a pronouncement by the High Court in Rivers State yesterday to the effect that the 4 of them, or the court as it were, endorsed the leadership of the 4, or the leadership of the House, in which you have 4 members. Again, as I've said, until that judgment is set aside, it remains the law.
So, in other words,
we're not talking of impeachment now. We're not talking of impeachment now, but listening to the address of the governor. Again, the venue where the address was delivered has also raised another legal issue, which, again, as I said, had been captured in the case of Ladoja. So what I would perhaps advise is that for all the dramatic personnel, they will need to look at the law. They will look at the decisions of our courts, so that these matters can be resolved as stipulated by law.
Let us say, so I get you, so that I'll get you correctly. So these four can form a quorum to be able to pass the appropriation bill. Is that what the law
No,
says?
you see, according to the judgment of the High Court, which has not been challenged, But again, as I said, if you go back to the Plateau case that I mentioned, the Supreme Court made the point. When it comes to impeachment, 8 members out of 26 or thereabout cannot impeach the governor. INEC will have to conduct election. And in this case, once the seats of the 27 have been declared vacant, INEC, I think one returned to the PDP today. So we may be talking of about 26 of them. INEC will have to conduct elections to fill the vacancies so that the people of Rivers State can be well represented in the parliament.
All right, let's take this a bit further. Now, I'm concerned, I'm sure a lot of Nigerians are concerned that the assembly membership across Nigeria, not even Rivers State, and this has been some of the things persons like you have been agitating. When assembly or lawmakers, the assemblies are dotted along loyalty lines. So we see a situation now where we perceive that the 27 of them are loyal to Governor Nyesom Wike, and former Governor Nyesom Wike, I should say, the FCT minister, and then these four are loyal to Governor Siminalayi Fubara. What doesn't this further highlight this lack of independence and separation of power? Because if they were totally independent, whatever is going on between a predecessor and his successor, successor and his predecessor, shouldn't even happen or bother what is going on in the State Assembly. Does it bother you?
Well, it should bother every Nigerian that the houses of assembly are not independent of the executive, even at the national level. Even at the national level, in the Second Republic, you could predict where the PRP or what the PRP and the Unity Party of Nigeria will vote for. Ditto for the MPN and the NPP and GMPP. But today, there's no any form of ideological difference between the legislators. Hence, budgets are passed without any serious debate, where legislators are asked to screen nominees of the president or the governor. They simply ask them to take a bow, which makes a mockery of the Constitution. Because what the Constitution is saying, by saying you will screen those who have been appointed by the president, is to provide an opportunity for you to examine their CV, the curriculum vitae, find out whether they are fit for the position they have been appointed. But a situation whereby you simply ask a nominee to take a bow, it's automatically appointed. The country then runs to problems later. So when we are talking of the independence of the legislature and what is playing out in Rivers, in the National Assembly and the main majority of the House of Assembly, is that you cannot talk of genuine separation of powers in Nigeria. It's an ongoing development.
Lenasek, if I may butt in here, Lenasek, just if you can answer this in 30 seconds, I would really appreciate, because we're due for a break, so we can close this up as quickly as we can. Now, there's a bigger crisis brewing if this is not resolved as soon as possible. For those who are familiar with Rivers politics is not by zoning, it's by what they call upland and riverine area, the Jaws and the people, maybe the queries and all of that on the upland area. And this is beginning to metamorphose because we can see people drumming up support along those lines. What would you advise that should be done immediately, not to escalate things further? 30 seconds, sir.
My advice is that all the parties involved in the crisis will have to go back to the Constitution, will have to embrace the rule of law. And this is what has just happened in Ondo State. The state was on edge, everybody was worried. But now that the governor sent a letter to the House of Assembly and once again proceeding on medical leave, by this letter asking the House to transmit powers to the deputy governor, who will now become acting governor. And that was done today. In the case of Rivers, there is a judgment of a court delivered yesterday. There is a declaration by the speaker that those who defected have lost their seats. Those who are dissatisfied will have to challenge the declaration by the speaker. INEC is also being called upon to conduct fresh elections to fill those vacant positions. So, as far as I'm concerned, all the parties will have to go back to the provisions of the Constitution, consult their lawyer so that they can take appropriate decision in line with the rule of law. And that is the only way to solve the problem.
Thank you so much, Leonard Sek. As always, we reach out to you as soon as possible to provide the legal perspective to these issues. We've been talking about Rivers politics and the development and the intrigue that is going on there. Mr. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, thank you, sir, for coming on the program. We must appreciate you.
Thank you very much. It has been my pleasure.